Thank you very much for inviting me and for such a nice introduction. I wanted to talk about myself, but as you said, there is a book and there is a film about me, so I'm not talking about myself, but I'm going to talk about the Iranian elephant in the room, which are the recent protests in Iran. And I'm sure that many people in this room and people in the audience online and around the world want to hear about it. And I think it's very appropriate that I'm following our Zimbabwean hero here because I would like to be in his place in a few years' time and talk about the fall of a dictator and a better future for Iran. But in the meantime, I have to express my worry for a very volatile future in Iran and a future in Iran that can be consumed by violence and chaos, or it can be a bright future for people who are pro-democracy and young Iranians. At the moment, we don't know. What the recent protest in late December and early January 2018 showed was that on one side, you have many people in the nation who want change and want to change the system now. And on the other hand, you have the supreme leader of Iran, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, his cohorts in the Revolutionary Guard, and many foundations and organizations that are under his supervision. They are unaccountable, and they do not want to change. So that means that Iran is almost at a dead end. What we also saw in the recent demonstrations was that many people who came to the streets, they were young. The average age of the people who were arrested, according to the police, was between 16 and 25. That means that in many of them, most of them, could not even vote in 2009 when the Green Movement happened. And we saw acts of violence during the recent demonstrations. Many people, of course, demonstrated peacefully, but many people resorted to violence. So that specter of violence really frightens me. And it's very different from 2009 when I took part in the demonstrations with millions of other Iranians in silent demonstrations in Iran. In 2009, I can say that most of us, at least, knew that it is the violence that has led us to that point in Iranian history. We all remembered the day after the 1979 Iranian Revolution, when the Shah's officials were executed summarily with no real justice, and most of Iranians, they cheered for those executions. We were silent, most of us were silent, were members of the Bahari faith, the largest religious minority in Iran, were persecuted and killed and were imprisoned. Most of us were silent. We were silent where Jews, Zoroastrians, and Christians became second-class citizens. We were silent when women were subjected to forced hijab and became second-class citizens. So in 2009, 30 years after the revolution, when we came to the streets, we all had that collective guilt and introspective mood that knew that this is our generation, or at least our father's generation, that has created this situation for Iran. This government in Iran has not come from Mars. This is a government that we brought to power. And we were ashamed of that, and we wanted to change it peacefully because we knew that violence would have a negative result. But 9 years later, in 2018, we saw that there is a new generation of demonstrators who do not have any recollection of those revolutionary days, demonstrators who may resort to violence. And I think as journalists, as activists, as world community, we have to condemn violence on all sides, and we have to teach young Iranians that the only way forward is peaceful change, nonviolent change, and that is the only way that we can have a sustainable, better future in Iran. Otherwise, Unfortunately, I can only see mayhem and chaos.